Okay, so I've got a couple more entries that are undated. My dear God, to keep myself on a course, I am going to consider faith, hope, and charity. Now, faith. Of the three, this gives me the most mental pain. At every point in this educational process, we are told that it is ridiculous, and their arguments sound so good it is hard not to fall into them. The arguments might not sound so good to someone with a better mind, but my mental trappings are as they are, and I am always on the brink of assessing. It is almost a subconscious assent. Now, how am I to remain faithful without cowardice when these conditions influence me like they do? I can't read the particular depths of myself that say something about this. There is something down there that is feeling. It is under the subconscious assent, in a certain way, about this. It may be that which is holding me in. Dear God, please let it be that instead of that cowardice the psychologist would gloat so over and explain so glibly. And please don't let it be what they so jubilantly call watertight compartments. Dear Lord, please give the people like me who don't have the brains to cope with that, please give us some kind of weapon, not to defend us from them, but to defend us from ourselves after they have got through with us. Dear God, I don't want to have invented my faith to satisfy my weakness. I don't want to have created God to my own image, as they're so fond of saying. Please give me the necessary grace, O Lord, and please don't let it be as hard to get as Kafka made it. Next entry. Dear God, about hope, I am somewhat at a loss. It is so easy to say I hope to, the tongue slides over it. I think perhaps hope can only be realized by contrasting it with despair, and I am too lazy to despair. Please don't visit me with it, dear Lord, I would be so miserable. Hope, however, must be something distinct from faith. I unconsciously put it in the faith department. It must be something positive that I have never felt. It must be a positive force, else why the distinction between it and faith? I would like to order things so that I can feel all of a peace spiritually. I don't suppose I order things, but all my requests seem to melt down to one for grace, that supernatural grace that does whatever it does. My mind is in a little box, dear God, down inside other boxes, inside other boxes, on and on. There is very little air in my box. Dear God, please give me as much air as it is not presumptuous to ask for. Please let some light shine out of the things around me so that I can what it amounts to, I suppose, is be selfish. Is there no getting around that, dear God? No escape from ourselves into something bigger? Oh, dear God, I want to write a novel, a good novel. I want to do this for a good feeling and for a bad one. The bad one is uppermost. The psychologists say it is the natural one. Let me get away, dear God, from all things thus natural. Help me to get what is more than natural into my work. Help me to love and bear with my work on that account. If I have to sweat for it, dear God, let it be as in your service. I would like to be intelligently holy. I am a presumptuous fool, but maybe the vague thing in me that keeps me in is hope. Okay, last undated entry. Dear God, in a way, I got a good punishment for my lack of charity to Mr. Rothberg last year. Rothberg is a fellow student, workshop student. He came back at me today like a tornado, which, while it didn't hurt me too much, yet ruined my show. All this is about charity. Dear Lord, please make my mind vigilant about that. I say many, many too many uncharitable things about people every day. I say them because they make me look clever. Please help me to realize practically how cheap this is. I have nothing to be proud of yet myself. I am stupid, quite as stupid as the people I ridicule. Please help me to stop this selfishness because I love you, dear God. I don't want to be all excuses, though. I am not much. Please help me to do your word, O Lord. Dated 11/4/1946. I have decided this is not much as a direct medium of prayer. Prayer is not even as premeditated as this. It is of the moment, and this is too slow for the moment. I have started on a new phase of my spiritual life. I trust. Tied up with it, it is the throwing off of certain adolescent habits and habits of mine. It doesn't take much to make us realize what fools we are, but the little it takes is long in coming. I see my ridiculous self by degrees. One thing I have seen this week, has been a peculiar week, is my constant seeing of myself as what I want to be. Not the fulfillment of what I want to be, but the right genre, the correct embryo in the correct beast. The consequence of such a delightful state of coma will naturally be the eternal embryo, and eternal in no false sense. I must grow. I have a right, I believe, to show such interest in myself as long as my interest is in my immortal soul and what keeps it pure. Save to the pure and in their purest hour, Coleridge wrote. The gift of imagination functioned only then, only for those. Start with the soul, and perhaps the temporal gifts I want to exercise will have their chance, and if they do not, I have the best in my hands already, the only thing really needed. God must be in all my work. I have been reading Bernanos. It is so very wonderful. Will I ever know anything? 11:6. Mediocrity is a hard word to apply to oneself, yet I see myself so equal with it that it is impossible not to throw it at myself, realizing even as I do that I will be old and beaten before I accept it. I think to accept it would be to accept despair. There must be some way for the naturally mediocre to escape it. The way must be grace. There must be a way to escape it even when you know you are even below it. Perhaps knowing you are below it is a way to begin. I say I am equal with it, but I am below it. I will always be staggering between despair and presumption, facing first one and then the other, deciding which makes me look the best, which fits most comfortably, most conveniently. I'll never take a large chunk of anything. I'll nibble nervously here and there. Fear of God is right, but God is not this nervousness. It is something huge, great, magnanimous. It must be a joy. Every virtue must be vigorous. Virtue must be the only vigorous thing in our lives. Sin is large and stale. You can never finish eating it or even digest it. It has to be vomited. But perhaps that is too literary a statement. This mustn't get insincere. How can I live? How shall I live? Obviously, the only way to live right is to give up everything. But I have no vocation, and maybe that is wrong anyway. But how to eliminate this picky fishbone kind of way I do things? I want so to love God all the way. At the same time, I want all the things that seem opposed to it. I want to be a fine writer. Any success will tend to swell my head, unconsciously even. If I ever do get to be a fine writer, it will not be because I am a fine writer, but because God has given me credit for a few of the things He kindly wrote for me. Right at present, this does not seem to be His policy. I can't write a thing, but I'll continue to try. That is the point. And at every dry point, I will be reminded who is doing the work when it is done and who is not doing it at that moment. Right now, I wonder if God will ever do any more writing for me. He has promised his grace. I am not so sure about the other. Perhaps I have not been thankful enough for what has gone before. The desire of the flesh, excluding the stomach, have been taken away from me. For how long, I don't know, but I hope forever. It is a great peace to be rid of them. Can't anyone teach me how to pray? 11:11. How hard it is to keep any one intention, any one attitude toward a piece of work, any one tone, any one anything. I find a certain peace in my soul these days that is very fine. Lead us not into temptation. The story level, bah. Work, work, work. Dear God, let me work. Keep me working. I want so to be able to work. If my sin is laziness, I want to be able to conquer it. I look back over some of these entries, referring to the remaining text on this page of the journal appeared, and the rest of it is excised. 1:2:47. No one can be an atheist who does not know all things. Only God is an atheist. The devil is the greatest believer, and he has his reasons. 1:11:47. Can we even settle on calling ourselves mediocre, me on myself? If I am not this or that someone else is, may I not be something else that I am, that I cannot yet see fully or describe? I go back and um, remaining text excise, St. Thomas, more text excise. Rousseau had it that the Protestant has to think, the Catholic to submit. It is presumed, I suppose, that ultimately the Protestant too has to submit, but the Catholic never to think, i.e., about the nature of man's relation to God. This is interesting. Catholicism, being a guidebook to the only means of communication, is worth submitting to in the Catholic's view. And all these doctrines which deny submission deny God. Hell, a literal hell, is our only hope. Take it away, and we will become wholly a wasteland, not a half a one. Sin is a great thing as long as it's recognized. It leads a good many people to God who wouldn't get there otherwise. But cease to recognize it, or take it away from devil as devil and give it to devil as psychologist, and you also take away God. If there is no sin in this world, there is no God in heaven, no heaven. There are those who would have it that way, but even among the literary now, it is becoming popular to believe in God. There is a certain shocking something about it, but Catholics have to think certainly, as far as they are able, or as far maybe as they want to only. Me, I have to, in an attempt to do this, am I trying to shock with God? Am I trying to push him in there violently, feet foremost? Maybe that's all right. Maybe if I'm doing it, it's all right. Maybe I'm mediocre. I'd rather be less. I'd rather be nothing, an imbecile. Yet this is wrong. Mediocrity, if that is my scourge, is something I'll have to submit to, if that is my scourge. If I ever find out, will be time to submit. I will have to have a good many opinions. 1:25:47. The majesty of my thoughts this evening. Do all these things read alike as they seem to? They all send a faint nausea through me, albeit they were sincere at the time, and I recant none of my articles of faith. This evening I picture theoretically myself at 70 saying it's done, it's finished, it's what it is, and being no nearer than I am. This moral torpitude at 70 won't be tolerable. I want a revolution now, a mild revolution, something that will put an even 20th century asceticism into me, at least when I pass the grocery. The intellectual and artistic delights God gives us are visions, and like visions, we pay for them. And the thirst for the vision doesn't necessarily carry with it a thirst for the attendant suffering. Looking back, I have suffered, not my share, but enough to call it that. But there's a terrific balance due. Dear God, please send me your grace.